Why did I move here? I guess it was the weather.
Stunt jumps. They are essentially ingrained into GTA at this point. Introduced back in 2001 with GTA 3, they were originally added as a fun novelty to show some movie scene-esque moments to your gameplay. But with the release of GTA 5, they have become much more than that to some people. Many players have taken this simple addition and turned it into a full-blown speedrun, looking to see how fast they can complete every single stunt jump in the game as fast as humanly possible. But it's not as easy as just taking a simple jump. While it was first believed that this run would take someone hours to do, runners have developed so many new routes, tricks, and strategies that it can now be completed in less than half an hour. With a mix of precision driving, fast-paced routing, and of course a little RNG, stunt jumps have gone on to become one of the most competitive speedrun categories in GTA 5's history, with only a few people being able to call themselves world record holders. But even with so few, only one player has reigned dominant above them all. This is the history of GTA 5 Stunt Jump World Records. When GTA 5 released in 2013, the speedrun scene around the campaign almost immediately took off. However, stunt jumps wouldn't become a category for a pretty long time afterwards, and for good reason. With most speedruns in general, you start at the first mission, take the optimal route through every mission until you reach the end of the game. But stunt jumps is a little more unique than that. With the stunt jump speedrun, you essentially get dropped into GTA 5's huge map. There are 50 jumps randomly scattered across its entirety, and you only have one goal: complete all of them in any order as fast as possible. Stunt jump speedruns had been done here and there in other games like Vice City, but not much could be learned from those with it being a different game. And with so many possibilities for different routes on GTA 5's giant map, players didn't even know where to begin to try and optimize it. And no matter what, given the rules of GTA 5 speedrunning, you'd have to complete the prologue as well first in every run. So, due to all of these problems with the category, for the first 3 years of the game's launch, no one would even attempt a Stunt Jumps world record. Instead, runners like Datez, Decap, Torix, and Dark Viper focused heavily on lowering the times of the categories like any percent and 100%. But, completely on a whim one day, that would all change in the summer of 2016, when a single runner who was already pretty familiar with the game would give it a shot. And his name was Datez. Throughout 2014 and 2016, Datez was considered the undisputed king of GTA speedrunning. Not only did he hold the world record in every main category in GTA 5, but he was also setting records in older GTA games at the same time. He had seen speedruns of other people attempting stunt jump records in other games, but he realized that no one had even tried it yet in GTA 5. And since he already had such a dominant lead over all the other categories, the next best thing was to make a new one and go for a record in that as well. And on June 16th, 2016, Datez would set the very first speedrun of all stunt jumps with a world record time of 1 hour, 16 minutes, and 28 seconds, though unfortunately the footage didn't survive. With a time like this though, it's very likely he was just driving from jump to jump with no set route or tricks in mind and stopped the timer once he completed all 50. You could kind of consider it more of a really quick playthrough. The reason I say this is because his time would be beaten by over 15 minutes just a month later by a runner named Rafficus. And luckily, this footage did survive. But it's kind of hard to call it a speedrun. He wasn't using Franklin's ability in order to drive faster, he failed a bunch of jumps, switched cars multiple times, and even stopped to respond to messages on their social club. But what's funny is, despite that, this run would still manage to stay a world record for almost a year, mostly due to few players actually trying to beat it. In the summer of 2017 though, D'Artes would manage to beat his time and was trading the world record a few times with another runner named Unhollowed, though again, no footage survived from either runner. So, we will instead take a look at the world record from September of 2017, which is when we find the first optimized run for this category from a runner named TKM. Right off the bat, you can immediately see a difference in the driving being faster. He utilized Franklin's ability more and even drove a faster route in the intro mission, getting 4 stunt jumps instead of just 1 in D'Artes' run. After getting 2 more parking garage jumps in the Davis area, he stops the car and runs down this alley in order to pick up a weapon. This is so he can do one of the most important tricks ever developed for this run, cinematic canceling. Whenever you do a stunt jump, a slow motion cinematic view plays from a bird's eye view. Even though the speed of the slow motion can be sped up using the thumbstick, it still slows the jump down considerably from the default speed. And when added up over 50 jumps, you lose a lot of time from your game being slowed down. However, runners discovered that by aiming your gun while going off of the jump, the animation of the cinematic is cancelled, leaving the game running at normal speed. So the next time he goes over a jump, the cinematic view doesn't play, which will save him a lot of time over the entire run. After getting a few more jumps in the Cypress Flats, he heads towards the loading docks and shipping area where he picks up a total of 11 more jumps. TKM is constantly saving his game just before doing a jump. This is because when his car inevitably gets too damaged, he can quickly reload a save and repair his car. This is faster than looking for a new car, but it still loses about 20 seconds every time he needs to reload. After finishing up at the docks, he heads to the airport to get 3 more before blowing up a tanker and killing himself. Now, you might be asking why he would do this in a speedrun, and it's quite simple when you look at the map. We've just finished completing all the stunt jumps towards the bottom half of the map, and so we need to head back to the city. But driving there while dealing with the wanted level from entering the airport would lose a lot of time. So instead, we can speed up this process by ending ourselves, which spawns us right back at the hospital. We then grab another car and drive over to the next set of jumps in La Puerta and Little Seoul. He runs into some bad RNG here and fails a jump for the first time. While failing a jump doesn't immediately mean you have to reset, he does lose about 20 seconds from this one jump alone. But after hitting most of the jumps west of Los Santos, it's up to Rockford Hills for another 5 jumps, and once we get 5 more along the highway, it's onto the freeway to head north for the final 12 jumps. After hitting 1 along his drive up north to Blaine County, he gets 3 by the prison, 2 in Sandy Shores, 1 each near the Alamo Sea and Raton Canyon, and 2 in Paleto Bay. Because of how far away each of them are, it's faster to simply call a taxi and fast travel to each location or respawn at the hospitals close by. Doing this saves nearly 5 minutes over having to drive each one. And finally, we teleport to not only the last, but also the hardest jump in the entire run. The last jump of this speedrun is a jump over water into a small hitbox with no room for error. And even worse is if you miss, it's essentially run over. Your car is in the water, and it will take you minutes to swim back and find another car or even teleport with a taxi. But TKM knew this going into it, so he sets a new save before going, and good thing he did, as he would miss the jump and have to reload, losing him another 20 seconds. But on his second attempt, he sticks the landing and finishes with a time of 47 minutes and 33 seconds. Despite being a world record from 2017, this was still a very impressive run for the time. In fact, some sections of his route are still used today. Of course, they will be heavily optimized, and this would be proven just 3 days later when D'Artes would take back his world record with a time of 44:16. And even though none of D'Artes' times survived from this era, it was obviously a very strong record, as it would go on to stay the world record for over a year. But despite how dominant D'Artes had been over the category for the first 2 years, that would change in late 2018, as the category was about to go through a massive revolution. On October 24, 2018, the year-long world record from Dates would be beaten by a completely new runner to the category, mtoms127. Toms had already been speedrunning older GTA games, even having a world record in GTA San Andreas. But in 2018, he would try his luck with all stunt jumps, and he would beat Dates that day with a time of 41:23. And to be honest, it's almost hard to think of how this run was faster. Toms had switched cars 6 times throughout the run, had trouble losing the cops at the beginning, and even had a little door trouble. But he made it up with simply better driving and not pausing to save his game at all. Less than a week later, Toms would lower his own time down to 40 minutes and 54 seconds, cleaning up on some of the mistakes he had at the beginning of his previous run. He did have one new strategy up his sleeve, however, the Panto. While Franklin's Buffalo was undoubtedly a faster car, it constantly got stuck on something from the smallest hit and was overall pretty inconsistent with jumps. So by switching to a smaller car, some sections of the run became both easier and more consistent, especially by the docks where you have to thread the needle through containers multiple times. However, despite these optimizations, this new world record wouldn't last long. In fact, it would last less than 11 days before another new name would come out of nowhere to claim the top spot. And this runner would go on to change how the category is run forever. And that player was Relo. Relo was a big fan of speedrunning in general. He got into it watching streamers like Worcester play Pokemon and Siglemic run SM64. But when GTA 5 came out, he immediately got inspired watching the top runners attempt any percent runs. But since his PC was bad, he couldn't really run himself. So rather than going for records, he instead looked into how he could optimize certain categories, which is when he discovered all stunt jumps. The route was getting pretty optimized already, but Relo knew that it could still be a lot faster. So after spending months experimenting, he put his route to the test himself and would start to set competitive times. And on November 17th, 2018, he managed to set a new world record with a time of 40 minutes and 30 seconds. Despite being the world record, however, there were still some definite time saves that could be made. He missed a couple of jumps, got bad RNG, and could clean up the driving a little bit. But luckily, he wasn't done with the category just yet. In fact, over the next week, he made 2 massive changes to the routes that are still used by every runner even today. In the beginning section, the normal route was to finish the prologue, get a few stunt jumps during the beginning drive, and then finish the first mission before actually starting the bulk of the jumps. But Relo realized that you didn't actually have to do this. Instead, he would just begin the run right after leaving the Union Depository. He could now do all of the jumps at the top of the map with the 9F first, and then swap to the Panto for the much harder bottom half, saving him about 1 minute and 30 seconds by using a faster car for a lot of the jumps. But that wasn't the only new trick he developed either. Like I mentioned, players would have to run into this alley in order to acquire a weapon to cancel the cinematics. However, after leaving the depository, Relo just punched this cop in the face, stealing his weapon instead. And since this is a scripted event, that cop will spawn with the same pistol every time. Both of these new strategies would prove very effective for Relo, beating his own record from just a week ago by over 3 minutes, and getting the first sub 40 time with a 37:18. Not to be beaten though, Toms would learn these strategies as well and came back a week later to claim back his world record with a time of 36:56.
That's what I'm fucking talking about. Fuck yeah. Oh, suck my dick, FriendlyBaron. No, I'm just kidding.
Wait a second, who is that? This player hasn't come up in the history and they haven't had any world records yet, so why would Toms be saying this about him? Well, it turns out that just hours before Toms had gotten this sub 37, someone else had managed to beat Relo's world record with a 37-minute flat. But because Toms had uploaded his run before him, it doesn't show up in the history.
So yeah, Baron got a 37 even, 37.00 yesterday, Lemon Ice. I don't think it's been submitted or anything, but that's new world record.
So while this runner might have been cheated out of this world record, it most certainly would not be his last. And of course, his name is FriendlyBaron. FriendlyBaron is a bit of a legend in the community today, but a few years back in 2016, he was just someone who really loved racing in GTA 5. Early on, he took part in a lot of racing events with Bruffy and even helped organize some events for his Nodo series. He started posting racing guides and funny moments to his FriendlyBaron channel, growing a small fan base around himself.
Oh, I have the what? Hello? What just happened?
Baron especially loved driving in GTA 5, and so he thought that speedrunning would be fun as well. He began learning to speedrun the bigger categories like Trevor Percent and Any Percent in September of 2018, even getting quite good. But when he wasn't looking to spend hours on a single run, he would switch over to running all stunt jumps instead. And since he was already really good at driving, he progressed up the leaderboard really quickly. But it wasn't just FriendlyBaron going for these records either. Burhac, another record holder in Any Percent and 100% in 2018, was also grinding to beat this time as well. They were able to learn the route that Relo had previously optimized already, so it made it much easier for them to progress. But just because Relo wasn't the record holder anymore, doesn't mean he wasn't still focused on the category. In late December of 2018, just a few weeks after Tom's world record, Relo had just finished developing a new, even faster route for the run than before. He knew exactly how strong the route could be and immediately wanted to tell the community about it. And as a stroke of luck, Baron happened to be streaming at that exact time. Relo went into Baron's stream to explain to him in detail about his new route. And after just a few hours of practicing, Baron would start up a run, and it went like this. There were two major optimizations made to Relo's new route. You see, most players had been using Relo's original strategy of staying in the 9F for the jumps on the top half of the city, but then switching to the Panto for the bottom half. However, Relo figured that if you stayed in the 9F the whole time and completed the bottom half first, it would actually be much faster. Usually, you would start by doing the top half of the city and then make your way back in order to finish the first mission. But now, we won't finish the mission until we're ready to head up north. This helps save time by not only using one vehicle for the entire run, but it also means that when we blow ourselves up at the airport, we will respawn at the Union Depository and be right where we need to be to start the top half of the city. And if done optimally, this route would save over 3 minutes from the old strategy. After finishing the 39 jumps in the city, we do eventually finish the first mission, but right afterwards, we just call a taxi to take us directly up north instead of driving there. While most of the time save from Baron's run was from simply better driving and using Relo's faster route, he did utilize a new trick that had been recently discovered, known as the taxi pre-call. It's exactly as the name suggests. Instead of completing a jump and then calling a cab to teleport to the next location further away, you instead call the taxi beforehand, do the jump as normal, making sure to not go too far out of the call area, and drive back up to the road to get into the cab that's now waiting. It can only be used 3 times throughout the run, but each time saves about 15 seconds. And finally, once again, we end off with a jump to the lighthouse, which Baron luckily got on the first try and got his first world record with a time of 33 minutes and 21 seconds, over 3.5 minutes faster than the previous record.
Yes! Holy crap, that run! Oh my god! That was insane, dude! Holy moly!
But then, Baron decided to take this run and do something that no one had really done before. While most people would just post the full unedited VOD to YouTube and forget about it, Baron instead took this world record run and made it into a full 30-minute guide on how he got his world record and posted it to YouTube. And his video went viral, shooting to over 400,000 views in a month, and it now sits at over 1.3 million views. A very niche speedrun was now getting viral exposure from this video, and soon both new and experienced runners would gain more interest in this category. And to make it even better, the category was about to get a massive rule change that made the category even better to run. I mentioned briefly at the beginning that every run up to this point had to complete the prologue before starting the actual stunt jumps. This was standard for every category in GTA 5, but because of the short length of this run, it took up nearly a fifth of the total runtime. So in May of 2019, the community voted on changing it so you could just start the run from the beginning of the intro mission Franklin and Lamar. The vote went through, and just like that, Baron's 33:21 was immediately retimed to a 27:18. It was a pretty anticlimactic way of breaking the 30-minute barrier, but honestly, runners were just happy they didn't have to complete the prologue anymore. This made the category even more appealing to new players, and just a week after the change, Burhac would take the world record away from Baron after 5 months with a time of 26:26, though no footage of this run has survived. These two runners had already been fighting over the Any% Classic world record a month prior, and now they were doing the same with stunt jumps as well. But even with more runners and even stronger competition, Baron wouldn't be beaten that easily. A week after Burhac's world record, Baron would come back and beat him with a time of 25:35.
Yes! Yes! Really good, finally!
And another week later, he lowered it again to a 25:21.
No! Oh, I'm so happy yet so salty at the same time. I thought for sure it was gonna mess me up.
He didn't even have any new strategies, just better driving and execution, even using his knowledge from racing to incorporate racing lines into his runs. And this run would cement Baron as the king of GTA 5 stunt jumps, with his 25:21 going uncontested for over 5 months. Even with how good this run was, to Baron, there was only one final goal he had to achieve: the sub 25.
That rain at the end really dicked me though. Man, I could definitely do a sub 25, but that's the perfect run. That is the perfect run now.
It was only a year and a half ago when Unhollowed held the record at around 50 minutes, but now players were looking at being able to complete it in half that time. With how much the driving, the route, and the tricks had been improved since then, it seemed like sub 25 was at least possible. But with Baron not failing any jumps in his world record, as well as no new strategies being developed, he would have to save that time on pure pace alone. Baron and Burhac would continue running this category for months and months, trying desperately to get the sub 25. But for whatever reason, the run just never came together for them. Baron would manage to lower his time down to a 25:07, which was a new world record, but it still just barely missed out on being under 25 minutes. No matter what Baron or Burhac did, they just couldn't get the perfect run. Over time, they would start to lose motivation in the category, thinking it couldn't be done, spending more time focusing on Any% records instead of all stunt jumps. So, with both of the top runners opting to focus on other categories, it seemed like the sub 25 would never come to be. But in October of 2019, the unthinkable happened. A runner that had never held a world record in the category before became the first person to achieve the sub 25. And what this runner would go on to do with the category is nothing short of incredible. Saurus was a relatively new runner to the community, He had only started playing in the summer of 2019 and didn't even submit his first speedrun until September. In fact, the community had kind of come full circle. He actually got interested in speedrunning through Dark Viper's How the Speedrun Ended series and learned the route for all stunt jumps through Baron's guide from earlier. But despite how he might have started, people could tell just how good Saurus was, and he was progressing up the leaderboards extremely quickly. Just a month prior to him getting the sub 25, his best time was only a 27:50, meaning he shaved nearly 3 minutes off in a very short time, but it was clear to see why. While Relo and Baron had worked to create the most optimized route from getting to jump, Saurus excelled at finding the best ways to execute each of the 50 jumps. For example, with this jump under the highway, rather than landing on the road and driving around the barrier like Baron and Burhac had, he instead jumps over the road, just barely making it into the landing box and bouncing off the wall to keep momentum, getting rid of the small drive around the barrier, which saved him about 7 seconds on this one jump alone. Or if we look at the first jump in the run, rather than landing before the stairs, which had actually messed Baron up, Saurus instead landed as far on the corner as possible but still on flat ground, allowing him to drive away instantly. These look small, but again, added up over 50 jumps, and these optimizations really pay off. Which is why, just a month after his sub 25, he had already lowered the world record again to a 24:18. Simply put, no one could keep up. While other runners were still trying to break sub 25, Saurus was now pushing into the sub 24s, getting another record of 23:37 in February of 2020. He had built such a dominating lead over all the other runners that he decided to take a break from all stunt jumps for a while and claimed the any percent and 100% world records in that time. And mind you, he did all that and still came back to be the first person to get a sub 23 time in October of 2020, lowering the world record to a 22:50. Even though Burhac was another world record holder and Baron was a huge fan and really good at the driving, both of them still were no match for how fast Saurus had been. He was simply in a league of his own. A few runners would start to show some promise, getting a good run here and there, but for the most part, Saurus stood completely alone on the leaderboard. In fact, he might have been too dominant. With no one really around to challenge him, Saurus would actually go on to take a massive break from the category, and his 22:51 would stay the world record for over 3 years. And right now, you're probably thinking this is the part where I tell you about the runner who came along to beat his time. But the only one who could beat Saurus was himself, lowering his time once again to a 22:12 in February of 2023. And not even a day later, he finished off the category with a final time of 21:51, which is where the record stands today. Thanks for watching.